Someone you love is gone. The body is still. The house feels wrong. And you don't know what to do with your hands. That feeling has been felt by every human being who has ever lived. And what your ancestors did next, in that exact moment, is far stranger than anything you were taught in school. Let's go back 300,000 years to a cave system in South Africa called Rising Star. In 2013, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger led a team deep into an almost unreachable underground chamber. They found bones, dozens of them, carefully arranged, belonging to a species called Homo naledi, a creature with a brain roughly 1/3 the size of yours. No predator activity, no flood deposits, no accident. The only explanation: intentional placement. These ancient relatives of yours had carried their dead into the darkness and left them there, on purpose. Your ancestors were doing something with their dead before they had the brains we associate with human thought. Why? The simple answer is sanitation. Dead bodies spread disease. Move the body, protect the group. But that explanation falls apart the moment you look closer. Because your ancestors didn't just move bodies, they adorned them. In a cave in southern Spain, researchers found perforated shells, drilled, pigment-coated, strung like jewelry, found alongside Neanderthal remains, dating back 115,000 years. A species your textbooks once called brutish was decorating its dead. In France, at La Chapelle-aux-Saints, archaeologists found a Neanderthal male, old, arthritic, toothless, buried in a shallow pit with care. He had survived years of injury, which means others had fed him and kept him alive long past his usefulness as a hunter. Anthropologist Eric Trinkas, who has spent decades studying Neanderthal remains, argues this reflects something close to emotional attachment, a recognition that this specific person mattered. Grief may be older than your species. Move forward to 100,000 years ago. At Kofze Cave in Israel, researchers found a child buried with the antlers of a fallow deer, placed deliberately across the body. Not food, not tools, antlers, over a child, inside a cave. Archaeologist Paul Petit, who wrote one of the most comprehensive studies of prehistoric burial behavior, argues these rituals were almost never purely practical. They were social. They were a way of saying something. To the dead, to each other, to whatever the living imagined existed beyond the edge of life. When you stand at a graveside today, you are doing something your ancestors invented underground, 300,000 years ago. The instinct to gather, to mark the moment, to not simply walk away, that is not a cultural invention. It is a biological inheritance. But here is where it gets stranger. Not all ancient cultures buried their dead. Some burned them. Some kept them. In the ancient settlement of Ain Ghazal in Jordan, around 7000 BCE, archaeologists found skulls plastered in lime, painted with eyes, displayed in homes like portraits. Your ancestors were not always saying goodbye. Sometimes they were refusing to. The dead didn't leave the community. They were kept inside it, consulted, honored. What looks morbid to modernize was, in its original context, an act of love, a way of saying, you are still ours. That impulse has never fully disappeared. Photographs on mantles, voicemail messages kept for years, objects carried in pockets. Your brain, shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of small group living, does not have good software for permanent absence. It keeps reaching for the person who isn't there. That is not a flaw. That is ancient hardware doing exactly what it was built to do. Every human culture that has ever been studied has a death ritual. Not most of them. All of them. There is no known human society that simply discards the dead without ceremony. That means this is not about religion. It is not about one tradition. Something in the human animal insists on ritual at death. Psychologist Robert Kastenbaum described death rituals as the primary way living humans process the unbearable. The ritual gives shape to something shapeless. It tells your nervous system, this is the path. This is how we move through it. Your ancestors invented that path in the dark, in a cave, carrying someone they loved. And you still walk it. The next time you light a candle, or say a name out loud in a room full of people who love the same person, you are connecting yourself to every human who has ever lived. You are doing what Homo naledi did 300,000 years ago. In the dark, with hands that looked almost like yours. You are refusing to walk away. That feeling, not knowing what to do with your hands, is not weakness. It is the oldest thing about you.